Evolutionary or Underground Supplements, episode number 12. Today, we're going to talk about HCGenerate as a cycle bridge. All right, so listen very closely on this one. Don't panic, stick with us. We're going to talk about what happens on cycle, what happens when you come off cycle, what happens in between cycles. We're going to talk about the science behind it, make it simple. All right, we're not going to complicate things here. We're going to talk about what a bridge is. Now, a lot of you might not even have heard of a bridge before, but a lot of you have done some type of bridging before. So we're going to talk about bridging with HCGenerate. We're going to talk about what happens during your bridge to your body and how your body prepares for your next cycle and how your body handles what you just put it through on a cycle and PCT and all that good stuff. We're going to talk about Needtobuildmuscle, the company, and we're going to talk about all the ingredients in HCGenerate and how it works. And this is really, really a great supplement that Mobster and I have used for many, many years and have depended on for many, many years. So in this one specifically, we're going to talk about bridging with it. Although with HCGenerate, you can use it really anytime year round, because it is a natural supplement and it has benefits on cycle, PCT, off cycle, whatever. But in this one, we're going to focus on specifically bridging. So let's get right to it, Mobster. So first off, N2BM. N2BM has been around for about 15 years or longer, maybe 17 years, just depending on I can remember I first started using them in the late 2000s. So it's been at least 15, 16 years they've been around. And they've always the idea behind N2BM was very, very different than other supplement companies. Other supplement companies, they're resellers of products. They have cookie cutter products, the protein powders, the BCAAs, the pre-workouts, the post-workouts, the creatine, all this stuff. And look, N2BM, and they still have sold stuff like that over the years, but that's not their niche. Their niche is specifically selling products for people who use anabolic steroids, for guys and gals who are really at the top of their level. And these products are the best of the best. The ingredients are the best of the best. We're going to talk about the ingredients in this podcast. But N2BM, they wanted to cater to a group of people that was very, very different. I can remember the first time I started using anabolic steroids, I would have to basically go to the supplement store. And one of my buddies that I actually worked out with at the time owned a supplement store right next to the gym. So it was really, really cool. So I, go out, leave the gym, then I'd go to a store. And let me tell you something, I'd have a list of supplements that I was taking, okay? Whether it be on cycle, post cycle, during my bridge, whatever, I'd have a list. Very, very similar to what's in HCGenerate. The same type of ingredients, which we're gonna get to shortly. But involve the fenugreeks and the fedosia and the zinc and all this stuff, the tribulus and all this stuff that you need to produce testosterone and have a healthy HPTA. But I was using that stuff. I was buying it all separately. I was spending like $78 per bottle buying this stuff separately for a month's worth. So I was spending $500-$600 for a month's worth of supplements. All right. When N2BM, I came across N2BM, they had already been around for a few years already. But by the time I came, I found them, I was like, wow. So I tried out their HCGenerate and I was like, wow, finally a supplement company that caters to bodybuilders, because I was buying these supplements, Mobster. Like I'd buy Fedosia, for example, and the Fedosia would come in like 250 capsules, right? So I take 2 of those a day, and I'd have to like take like 4 or 8 a day to even have an effect, because again, when you're using anabolic steroids, it's a different, you're up another level. So it's not like these supplements are designed for like old people that you buy from the store. They're designed for the old man who's in his 60s, 70s. I was like, can someone please come up with something that actually has a ton of Fedosia already in it and a ton of other shit in it? A ton of fenugreek, a ton of zinc, a ton of 3,4-divinol, a ton of tribulus, et cetera, all in one that I can just take. So I don't have to take 4 or 5 times the dosage of this cheaper supplement that I'm getting from the supplement store, and I'm overpaying for. So N2BM, because they don't have a retail location, they don't have that overhead. They don't have hundreds of employees. They don't have a greedy owner who lives in a 14-bedroom mansion. Like you see these supplement owners on social media, Mobster. It's ridiculous. They've got jacuzzis, they've got mansions, they drive Lamborghinis.
Boats,
Where do you think
cars, yeah,
where do you think they get
yeah.
that money? They get it from you, from ripping you off.
Uh,
N2BM doesn't have that. N2BM, the owner is modest. Lives a modest lifestyle. He's just a normal guy, and he's just trying to bring products to the market that sell well and cater to people like Mobster and I. So go ahead, Mobster, touch on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at this, right, guys? You're listening to this podcast because you want to be informed, right? And I hope that most of you, and I've even said this on a few shows, go away and do your own research. Let me give you a prime example of a product that Needtobuildmuscle did before, and exactly what Steve said when it comes to going to supplement stores and getting deals and picking up products. Right. So I had, because I lift heavy weights, I go to the gym, I've been training a very long time. I start to get the same wear and tear on my joints as every other hard training motherfucker out there, right? So I look into what products, what ingredients, what supplements I should be taking to help my joints, to keep my joints nice and healthy. And the one that stood out in my mind, Steve, at that particular time was glucosamine sulfate. Now, a great product, and Needtobuildmuscle's actually produced this in the past. I'd like them to restock it. Includes other ingredients, for example, collagen, chondroitin, and so on and so forth, right? So here's the issue, and this is precisely why we rate Needtobuildmuscle so highly. You can go to Ma and Pa type supplement shops, GNC, which also owns a big brand in this country called Holland and Barrett's, the same company, and all the supermarkets, Steve. I can go to Asda, the UK version of Walmart, and I can find pretty much every supermarket has it now, a glucosamine sulfate product. And it'd be like $4, £3 something. And you pick it up and you go, that's a fucking bargain, Steve. And you look at it and it's like, 300 milligrams a day. Now, hang on. I've gone away and done the research. And the effective dose that was shown in studies to have a positive effect, i.e., make my goddamn joints healthy and feel good, was 1,500 milligrams. And that's this bargain product with 300 milligrams, which says it's a month's supply, is in fact like 7 or 8 days supply. I've got to take 5 times the dosage to get close to the number that they were talking about. I realized, for example, when I looked at glucosamine, you can have 2,000 milligrams, but the actual portion of the 2,000 milligrams which is effective is 1,500 milligrams. So you need to take this much more in order to get the actual effective dosage into your system. And so on. So 300 milligrams on a $4, $5 product ain't shit, right? So, for example, we're going to be talking about HCGenerate today. You go away and you look at effective ingredients that are going to have positive effects on your natural testosterone levels, and you look at those ingredients, and then you look at the effective dose of those ingredients. So there are a bunch, and I actually saw a great little video the other day, Steve, and I'm sure that they were pushing their own product, but I didn't get to the end of the video. But the guy said, well, there's pre-workouts out there, and they contain this ingredient and that ingredient. But he picked the 4 biggest names in the United Kingdom, in the UK, in Great Britain right now, of pre-workout products, and not a single one of them had the first 4 ingredients were at an effective dose. Not one. There might be some synergy with a combination of ingredients, but none of them had the dose that was shown in the study to work. So straight away you go, okay, why not? Well, because it's expensive, because there's not much of a profit margin, and you get into the whole vibe of it, right? So you go away and you look at Needtobuildmuscle products that they've sold before, products that they're stocking and restocking right now, products they're selling, and specifically the late HCGenerate. You look at the main ingredients, which we're going to discuss, and I've actually got panels on my computer open ready for this show, talking about the effects of this ingredient on free and bound testosterone. How many people were in the study? How many people had a positive effect of better levels of free testosterone in the study, and so on and so forth, right? And then effective dosages, what the dose in the study that worked best for the majority of the people in that study, and so on and so forth. And you go back and you look at HCGenerate. And again, I will emphasize this point of getting a listener to check for themselves, because I might be biased. I might be saying this, that, and the other, right? You go away and you check for yourself. Does the ingredient do what Mobster says it does? Is the dose correct? Now, something I've touched upon in previous shows when we've talked about Need to Build Muscle on our supplement podcast is the following. In order for them to produce a product like this, it's hard to get the combination of ingredients properly sourced in a proper extract, leaf, root, stem, or whatever form is expensive. It's difficult for the formulation company to put it together exactly how Need to Build Muscle wanted them to do. They spoke to industry experts. What ingredients do you think should be in this product and in what form and from what source? They rely on the formulation company to go away and get the specific leaf or the specific stem from the right part of the world in enough of a quantity to be able to produce it at a kind of price that allows for some margin. And the truth of the matter is, and this applies, and I'm thinking specifically again today, I think sometimes people say, oh, this product's expensive. Of course it's expensive because it does what it says. Number one, it has the right dosaging. Number two, it's fucking hard to do it properly because there are massive companies out there, like I said, in the United Kingdom, the 4 biggest players in the United Kingdom that are not using effective dosages in their own pre-workout products. That is difficult to do, and if a business point of view, doesn't make you loads of money. So the reality of the situation is exactly like Steve said. I know, and I was thinking of one specific person when Steve was talking just now, and I said boat when he was talking about the car in a 14-bedroom house. This particular person's not that long come out of jail, Steve, and has actually wrote a book about their experience. Crashed their boat while they were high on drugs, sold the company that he owned before for $30 million and so on and so forth. And the truth of the situation is that it's a good enough company. They have a great gym. But the reality is the man is in it for the money. The company's there to make a profit. Now, I'm fortunate, and I think Steve is as well, that we don't rely on one single thing for income. And I'm going to say the same thing about the owner of Need to Build Muscle. Because we're not waiting, in this case, for HCGenerate to make tens of thousands of dollars for the owner. But what in reality you've got is a great product that works exactly how it's supposed to with the right dosing. And that's the reason why it costs what it costs. But again, guys, check the ingredients, check the numbers. Do that for any of their products that are in stock right now. You can go back, because we talk about other products they produce, and it's all the same, Steve. The time that they spent with industry experts, the time that they would have had multiple samples sent to them by the formulation company, a huge company that produces, I think there's only about 5 of these companies in America, Steve, that produces 90% of the hard-to-produce products for all the big-name brands that you can think of. And those companies have got, in the case of 1 or 2 of them, 60, 70 years experience. And it's still difficult to produce this product in great quantities, 10,000 bottles at a time and all this kind of stuff. And then for you to sell it at a profit, for them to make the kind of numbers that most people in the industry do, Steve, they'd have to be half as expensive again. And you'd be looking at $160, $170 a bottle. But guys, look at it this way. And this is another reason why I think we should look at this product for bridging or just for plain good old-fashioned test boosting, Steve, between cycles. The amount that you spend on a cycle can quite easily be $1,000. Even with sales and everything else, if you go right, especially if you're competing, that's like the kind of baseline minimum for competition stack. There's guys out there, and Steve, we talk about $30,000 stacks for competition. Don't moan and bitch about using a proper product that does exactly what it's supposed to at the right dosaging, costing you $100, costing you $110. You're spending that on a couple of vials just to kickstart your cycle. Do this stuff right. We're going to talk about bridging right. We've talked about on other shows what a PCT is. Even doing your cycle right. Do it right and get the absolute best from your body, from sensible cycling dosages to maximizing your results and looking and feeling and being your absolute best, Steve.
So one quick thing, and HCGenerate, sometimes you'll be online, you'll be searching for it, and you'll see the name Needtobuildmuscle. So very, very important, really quick. I don't want to spend too much time on it. But, there's situations with credit card processors where credit card processors don't like the name HCGenerate because it sounds like HCG, which is pregnal, which is a peptide that's sold out there. So obviously that kind of that scares credit card processors away. So that means that N2BM has to charge more because they have to use a more high risk credit card processor that charges them a bigger fee, you see. So that is why you saw for a period of time they had to adjust the name to N2Generate. But now it's back to be called HCGenerate. They got those credit card processing situation straightened out apparently. So in case you see it, you ever see N2Generate, you get confused, but it's the same product, same great product, same ingredients, and that's basically the reason for that. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. So let's get into what happens on cycle and off cycle. And this is going to be important before we get into why HCGenerate works so good as a cycle bridge. And then we're going to also talk about what bridging is, because a lot of you are listening to this. You're like, I don't even know what bridging is. I've never even heard of bridging. But it doesn't mean just because you don't know what it is that you haven't done it before. So we're going to kind of explain it. It's a great way to keep gains. And I know Mobster is going to have a lot to say about that. But let's first talk about on cycle. When you use anabolic steroids, okay? These are very strong hormones, all right, that you're using. And although, anabolic steroids, they're not going to kill you when you use anabolic steroids. I mean, unless you're close to getting a stroke and you take a bunch of anabolic steroids, then they'll push you over the edge or you have liver damage or something. But in reality, where anabolic steroids do affect you big time is your reproductive system, your HPTA, your pituitary glands, your Leydig cells, which are your testes, which are your balls. That's why when you're on anabolic steroids, you notice your balls start to shrink. It's not your imagination. And a lot of people like to laugh about that. And they, there's this thing, the whole machoism, industry likes to talk about, oh, I got bigger balls than you. I've actually had someone tell me that at a poker game before after they bluffed me out of my hand, Mobster. They're like, I've got big balls. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm on steroids.
Okay.
I have raisin balls. Does that make you better than me?
Good head. That's crazy.
Look, but at the end of the day, that's what happens. And a lot of times, people, they'll be running an anabolic steroid cycle and they don't get that, But what happens is if your pituitary glands are no longer producing the LH, the FSH, the follicle stimulating hormones, they're not feeding those Leydig cells anymore, not feeding your testes. So they basically shrivel up. And that's okay when you're on cycle. Now, running HCGenerate on cycle will actually help plump up your balls because they help feed your Leydig cells. So you'll notice when you're on HCGenerate on cycle, your balls will actually plump back up or stay plump if you're already using it. So that's something to keep in mind. This is why I was telling you at the beginning of the show, HCGenerate is not just good in the bridge, it's also good for on cycle. And also does other things on cycle that's good too, like help your cholesterol levels as well. But here's the thing. When you come off of anabolic steroids, that's where the problem starts for a lot of you, is you crash. Because now you not only are missing those exogenous hormones that you were injecting or that you were taking orally, but you're also, your body's HPTA is still shut down and still suppressed. It needs time to come back to life. Just imagine a flower toward the end of winter and going into spring. It's still dormant. It looks dead, or a tree. It looks dormant. And then spring comes, and then boom, those leaves come back, and the tree comes out and looks nice again. Well, that's what happens when your body. But what happens is the more you use anabolic steroids, the more you abuse anabolic steroids over time, the less it will come back. It's like damaging the tree every season. That's your cycle. Every time you're on a cycle, you damage that tree. So it's very important to come off and go into a bridging phase. So you're going to come off PCT properly. And then before you run your next cycle, there's a long gap of time. And during that bridge, all right, that's where people lose a lot of muscle, they lose a lot of strength, and they gain fat. And that's what makes people say, you know what? I just want to stay on steroids. I don't want to even come off. But that's a huge mistake because health wise, it will, it will shorten your lifespan if you just stay on steroids year round, especially at higher doses. So the idea behind bridging, and we're going to get into bridging on the next segment shortly. I'm going to bring in Mobster to talk about that. What happens that that's the main reason you want to bridge is to kind of hold on to those results that you got so you don't go back to looking worse than you did before. A lot of people actually look worse when they use anabolic steroids for that reason, because they crash, they lose motivation, they don't feel like working out anymore, they don't feel like eating good anymore, and they end up losing muscle, losing strength, and gaining fat back. And it doesn't make any sense. So that's what happens on cycle and off cycle. Anything you want to add to what happens on cycle and off cycle, Mobster, before we move on to what is a bridge?
Yeah, I mean, I want to not so much that, Steve, because here's the number. I mean, there's a bunch of effects, and Steve has covered a few of them, and indeed, of course, HCGenerate actually benefits more than just testosterone production. But the biggest problem, and the number one problem, is Steve, is that people sometimes, we've even had people start a cycle or just about to start a cycle, and they'll say something like, and I don't want to suppress my natural testosterone. You go, motherfucker, if you're going to use anabolic steroids, you're going to suppress your natural testosterone. It's really that simple. And then you get into the whole head fuck, as Steve said. You gain, you get strong, you get lean, etc., etc. You come off cycle and you don't understand that your natural production is suppressed and you made no tweaks, which I'll get into very quickly. And it's a head fuck, Steve, because you lost all that muscle and then you get fatter and you look as bad as you did when you started, or worse, as Steve said, because your body is trying to compensate for the lack of natural production of testosterone. Now, I've touched upon, and you can go off and check my tips thread on Evo for this, how you can change your training and change or tweak your diet to keep as much of your gains as possible. One of the key points, which we're kind of talking about today, Steve, is the bridging and or a proper PCT. Now, it's a little bit confusing. PCT is post-cycle therapy and can include and should include a product like HCGenerate, aka a testosterone booster, along with other things that it does. But a bridge is slightly different in my mind. And Steve knows, and I've said this on the forums multiple times, I am not a fan of bridging in the traditional sense. And the traditional sense is thus. You do a cycle, you gain. You get stronger, you get leaner, you get more muscular, whatever. The aim of the cycle was, boom, you've had a great result. People then get head fucked by low testosterone levels or no natural production of testosterone, and they panic. And what some of them do is immediately bridge with more steroids, or indeed even SARMs, with still some form of suppression. And then they have this kind of vicious cycle going back and forth, back and forth. And at some point, they kind of sort of more or less inhibit permanently to a very low level, if anything, their natural production of testosterone, full stop. So then you end up on TRT. What you really want, and that's precisely what HCGenerate does, is to cultivate, bridge, if you like, in between cycles of anabolic steroids, a product like HCGenerate, which encourages, and we're going to get into the reasons why, with specifics on the ingredients, backed up by research, which I've done for you, and I will actually refer to that when I talk about some of the ingredients. Natural production to get your body, back to normal natural production, and if you're incredibly lucky, and you should be with a product like HCGenerate, slightly elevated levels of natural production. In other words, and Steve touched upon this earlier on, a healthy body, a body that's almost, if not right back to where it was before. And indeed, because you've tweaked your training, like I've talked about, because you've tweaked your nutrition, like I've talked about, to maintain as much of those gains or losses, depending on the aim of the cycle, but let's say gains, muscle, strength, looking good, to keep as much of that between cycles as possible. And this is another head fuck for some guys, including a poker player buddy of Steve's, plumping your balls, being a hairy motherfucker like he was before, because we know that some steroids can affect your hairline, keeping you lean, keeping you mean, keeping you out there as an ass kicker, enabling you to do your day job, stopping you dealing with stress in a bad way, getting the ups and downs of crazy testosterone levels feeling like king of the fucking world high and like a beaten up dog low and so on and so forth. And we want all of that shit sorted out. And in reality, and I think specifically HCGenerate, and I especially in this particular example, Steve, as a bridging product, something to use between cycles to maintain your gains, to maintain your strength, to make you feel good, like you did the ass kicker that you felt and the strong motherfucker that you felt on cycle, as much of that as possible, while being as healthy as possible. And that's probably the key word here, because if you start to go down the road of, and I'm not a fan of this, using steroids or SARMs or peptides to bridge, you're just causing yourself more problems. Your balls are going to stay small, you're constantly suppressed, and we don't want that. Any guru, any podcast that I've ever listened to, and I'm including myself and Stevesmi when I talk about this, they do talk about these other things, but 99.9% of them, I can think of a bunch of gurus that I've listened to one or two podcasts with. They all encourage you, and we're encouraging you, and Needtobuildmuscle is encouraging you to do your absolute best to get back to naturally produce levels of testosterone as much as possible, and to inhibit the idea of having to use more steroids, more SARMs, more peptides in between. All SARMs and peptides absolutely have their place in a cycle, Steve. But I'm a 59-year-old motherfucker as I do this show. Steve's a few years behind me. And thus far, we've avoided going on TRT. And we've done that by using products like HCGenerate, by being sensible with our cycling dosaging. And we've achieved in our own little way. I've still got a couple of outstanding world records. Steve's done a couple of world-class lifts, keeps a world-class, he's in the 1% body-wise when it comes to how he looks when he hits the beach and so on and so forth. And we've done that by encouraging as best we possibly can with products like HCGenerate, natural production of testosterone, plumping our balls and keeping as healthy as goddamn possible in between cycles with Needtobuildmuscle's help. So back to you, Steve, when we start to talk about ingredients.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on bridging one more time. The biggest mistake I see people out there doing during a bridge is they further suppress themselves. And they suppress themselves by taking certain peptides that are suppressive. And it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, you might as well just stay on testosterone year round. And a lot of people do testosterone replacement therapy or blasting and cruising. They just cruise in between. But again, you're going to shut yourself down, and it's going to have an effect on your fertility. And a big reason too why you want to use something like HCGenerate and not use a suppressive peptide like ACG or HMG, or stay on TRT and stay on testosterone during a cruise, is fertility. Because as you get older, every time you bridge with one of those suppressive compounds, it will knock down your fertility. Yes, even with HMG and HCG, they will drop your fertility. That's the misconception, because what they do is they signal your pituitary glands to become suppressed. HCGenerate, the supplement that we're talking about, does not signal your pituitary glands to be suppressed. It supports your pituitary glands. It supports your Leydig cells, okay? And it helps balance your estrogen and your hormones in your body naturally. And it also has many other benefits that we're going to talk about when we talk about the individual ingredients.
So let me touch upon one more aspect, Steve, and I think this is just before we move on, and I think it's super important, and it's going to sound like I'm giving some of the listeners an ass kicking, and maybe I am, right? I've been doing this, as Steve has, a long time when it comes to these shows, when it comes to giving out this advice. And part of that is experiencing or seeing, because I've not experienced it myself, thankfully, but I have seen many, many people, and it's nearly always younger, who have a gung-ho attitude to live fast, die young, burn out, blah, blah, blah. Better to burn out than fade away. And it's great. These are great lines from movies, etc. But what they do is they go all in, Steve. They go all in with the cycle. They go all in with the blasting and cruising. And they're convinced that they won't be affected. They won't be the person who's going to have problems when it comes to maybe fertility, maybe having a kid. Some of them are like, oh, I don't want children. You're 21, you're 22, you're 23 years of age. You shouldn't be on PEDs. You're 24, you're 25. You're still thinking, I don't want kids. And then suddenly you hit 30. Your bollocks are the size of raisins. Your balls are the size of raisins. Your fertility is just tanked, Steve. You've gone on down a sperm count and you've got like one floater and he's barely swimming around in circles. And worse, you've gone from hitting the bars, hitting the clubs, one night stands and short relationships and whatever else. And now life has moved on and you're coming up on 30 and you've come across the girl, the woman, the person you want to have kids with, the person you can't imagine being without, the one you're going to buy a home with, and it's going to be absolutely crazy. And she sits you down and says, John, I want us to have kids. I can't imagine our relationship would be. It's amazing, but it'll be even more amazing if we have children. You go, yeah, baby, I want children too. But I've been using steroids nonstop for 10 years. My balls have disappeared. They're up by my fucking heroes. And Mobster was on the forums telling me not to blast and cruise. When we get people come on the forums, Steve, and they're like, I'm cruising on 500 milligrams. 500 milligrams is a fucking cycle. They don't get it, Steve. They don't understand it. And they don't realize that life will change. The thought process they have when they're in their early 20s, mid 20s will change when they hit 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. And they will start to think about fertility. And they do start to think about maybe having a kid and their place in the world and having a family and making their girlfriend, their wife, their partner happy. And then making themselves happy. Oh my God, I've grown into a man. I want kids. I want grandkids. And the steroid thing has fucked them. So this is another reason why we absolutely encourage as much as we possibly can. And I know I'm going to be banging this drum a little tiny bit. We encourage you as much as you can not to blast between cycles, not to constantly stay on PEDs of any kind, and to absolutely use like products like HCGenerate to get your goddamn balls and your testosterone and your pituitary gland working as close to, if not as on point as it was before the cycle. Health, fertility, and all that kind of stuff that might sound boring to you when you're in your 20s becomes super, super important when you find the partner that you want to have kids with. And now I know people, Steve, that have had to go down the in vitro fertility route, the whole fertilization thing, Steve, and it is an emotional roller coaster, expensive, and they regret certain decisions that they made when they're younger. So HCGenerate is absolutely the kind of product that's going to help you avoid that kind of stuff. So let's talk about now, Steve, specifically the main ingredients and why they do what they do for the listeners.
And the real question we need to be answered, Mobster, is would you rather have your dick hanging lower than your balls? That's the main question.
Yeah, that's Rich Piana. Rich Piana, the quote. I want my balls hanging lower than my balls. I don't care if my balls are small. Okay, Rich.
Check out that video. Those of you
Rich, are you still alive? Are you still alive, Rich? No, you're not. Fucking hell, man. He died too young. Massive motherfucker, but died too young. It's funny, and guys will joke about ball size and cock size and all that kind of stuff. But trust me, proper conversations, and I've had some of these, man, when I talk about prostate with old guys, proper conversations, sensible conversation. You have at least one buddy you can go to and sit down, have a man-to-man, maybe over a cigar and a beer, and say, listen, fucked up. What do I need to do? How do I fix this? And again, we've had this come on the forum and we see these guys. Yeah. So ultimately, those kind of big life decisions, the big life things, which are really important, come to all of us. So yeah, I mean, we can have the
guy at the poker table who saw me is probably listening to this, be like, "Yeah,
he's just trying to get
reach out to me if you guys know the guy. If you don't remember that story, he actually won a pot off of me for like $50 or something. It was like some tiny pot, and he was so proud of himself. He's just some dumb hick from like Alabama, that was playing against. He was so proud of himself. I was waiting to go to another table, a bigger table, to play for higher stakes. And he's so proud of himself at a little 1-2 table that he beat me on a hand. And he's bragging to me about how big his. I should have told him, let's go to the bathroom and compare the size of our balls.
Oh, man.
And he would have shut up really quick. All right, so let's get
Junkie
into
crazy
yeah.
bullshit.
All right, we're having fun on this one. So let's get into HCGenerate. Let's get into the ingredients that are in HCGenerate. So let me do for a couple of these, Mobster, and then you'll hit a couple, and then jump in if you want to add anything else. But the first ingredient I want to talk about is going to be Fedosia. And look, at the end of the day, we all know about Fedosia. All right, it's one of the most popular selling herbals, really, of the past 25 years when it comes to boosting libido, helping with erections, helping your balls plump up, all that good stuff, naturally boosting testosterone, quote unquote testosterone booster. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. There are supplements out there, Fedosia supplements out there. You can go on Amazon, you can go to your supplement store, to GNC, and buy some overpriced junk Fedosia product, which is not even the correct part of the plant, but it's listed as Fedosia. It doesn't do shit for you, okay? This is 1,000 milligrams of the stem of the Fedosia agrestis plant. This is the good stuff. This is the expensive stuff. This is the hard to get stuff, okay? And I'll let Mobster jump in and talk about that in a little bit. But let me just finish this with this. Fedosia, look, it's been around. The key with Fedosia is not only dosing it at the correct dosage, but also stacking it if you're going to get the most out of it. Just running it by itself is just not going to do the job, especially after cycle and during a bridge. So look, it's going to boost your sex drive. It's going to help boost your testicles on it. Like if your testicles are raisins after cycle and you take a bunch of Fedosia and you take HCGenerate, which has a lot of Fedosia, I guarantee you your balls will come back. They'll come back quickly. Within really the first week, if you're taking this stuff every day as you should, and you're taking your HCGenerate as you should, 5 caps a day, which is the serving size, it will come back literally within that first week. You'll see your balls plump back up. It's great for that. And it's great for naturally boosting your testosterone levels without suppressing your pituitary glands, which are not what these peptides will do that guys are using. These peptides will boost testosterone levels and spike your progesterone and spike your estrogen and shut down your pituitary glands all at the same time. That's not what you want. You want this Fedosia, and you want this HCGenerate that will do all the good things without the bad things. So, Mobster, you want to touch on Fedosia a little bit?
Yeah,
Talk
I
about the
mean,
stem?
one of the things I did for this show, listeners, and we're going to do this across the ingredients. And I will say something also, Steve. The combination ingredients, we use the word on these shows of synergy. What does that mean? Essentially, it means you're taking one ingredient, which has a positive effect. You combine it with another ingredient, which in isolation, both have a positive effect. And the two things together have the individual positive effects and then an effect that's because you've combined the ingredients. When you do that with multiple testosterone boosters, again, at very close to, if not the actual effective dose in the study, the combination of the individual ingredients and the synergistic effect of the combination of ingredients is going to give you every goddamn thing that you want. Right. So let me just quote this. So this is from the specific study. Question was asked, does Fedosia increase testosterone? And it went on to say, has purported aphrodisiac effects, which is, of course, the original reason why this particular ingredient was chosen. Steve also mentioned, and I'll touch on this very quickly, Steve, it has to be the right part of the plant. If the root is the part of the plant that boosts testosterone, the leaf, the stem, the flower ain't going to do shit. You want the right part of the plant. You want the highest quality version of that part of the plant. So it went on to say, supplementation with Fedosia for 5 days led to remarkable increases of testosterone, and in brackets, twofold, with 18 milligrams a kilogram body weight, threefold, Steve, with 50 milligrams a kilogram, and a 6-fold increase with 100 milligrams a kilogram. And not only that, that's just a testosterone boost, but it also enhanced the libido, i.e. the urge to fuck. Guys, and that's one ingredient, one. You can do the maths in terms of your own body weight, and bearing in mind this product contains 1,000 milligrams, and it's from the right part of the plant. You can say, what do I weigh? How much should I be taking? And you can do the maths for yourself and work out precisely. And again, this is one ingredient, Steve. I've got 5 ingredients, I think, listed, where They had the numbers of people in the study and how many of those people saw a boost in the study and so on and so forth. So this is just for dosia. Let's move on to the next one.
Next one we're going to talk about is fenugreek. And fenugreek extract as well, 1,000 milligrams per serving in HCGenerate, known for its sexual boost all over the world. We've had studies showing that it will quickly cause a rise in libido and help with ejaculation issues. And it also helps with heart and kidney health. So not only are you getting the benefits, the sexual benefits during the bridge, which most of you are going to be concerned about, but what about the other things? What about the heart? I talked about the heart earlier. These are things we don't think about. What about the kidneys? These are things we don't think about. We can't feel our kidneys necessarily. We can't feel our heart, having issues. But, oh, yeah, we know when our libido is going down. We feel that on a day-to-day basis. Oh, my God, libido's down. I'm freaking out, right? But here's the thing. Your kidneys take a absolute beating when you use anabolic steroids. So during the bridge, you not only need to worry about recovering your HPTA without causing it more damage, which a lot of people make the mistake of doing, as I've said multiple times on this podcast, but you also have to worry about your kidneys and your heart, all right? Your kidneys, what ends up happening to pro bodybuilders, and Mobster knows this, we've done a lot of podcasts on these bodybuilders, once they get older, they start getting into the 50s and 60s, even earlier than that, they start having kidney problems and they'll need dialysis. Once your kidneys stop functioning correctly, you're going to have dialysis because they're going to have to be plugged up to a machine that does the work for you. And that's not fun. It's very time consuming. I know people that have said, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with this shit. I'm done spending hours 3 times a week having to go and do dialysis. I just want to go. I'm done with this shit. And they stop the dialysis and they're gone. Within a week, they're gone. So that's what happens because of the steroid abuse. So as long as you're abusing steroids throughout your life, and Mobster, he's at that age where he should already be having kidney issues. But the reason Mobster doesn't have kidney issues is because he's done these bridges correctly. And he also started using steroids later in life. If Mobster had started using steroids as a teenager and abused steroids and not been bridging and using products like HCGenerate that help your kidneys, he'd have kidney issues right now at his age, for sure.
Yeah. I use this analogy, Steve, on a few of our shows where I talk about a car. And if you're an average Joe, so it could be an average car, Steve. It doesn't have to be a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. It could be a normal car. And imagine, and I've heard this euphemism, this analogy used elsewhere. Imagine that you're putting in rocket fuel instead of petrol, gas, into your car. And not only that, you let the oil get low, and then you spend the whole day revving that engine. Literally sitting at the lights, it's right up against the red line. Everywhere you drive, doesn't matter what gear it's in, is redlining. And this is kind of what happens sometimes. And we kind of like it. Don't get me wrong, right? When we use PEDs, we're not redlining, but we are pushing the body to go to a place it doesn't want to go to. We train crazy hard. We eat lots of protein. Sometimes the diet is good. As often as not, it isn't. It should be good. And there's certain elements of what we do that's great. But sometimes when it comes to PEDs, and especially with the bridging and using more steroids in between cycles and all this kind of stuff, you're constantly revving your engine and you're never giving it a break. You're constantly going to the red line. You're constantly allowing it to overheat. You're never changing the oil. Any mechanic will show you this. They take the car apart and the oil's like butter, Steve. It's this great lump of gel. It's like, and the person complained when they brought it in and it was smoking. Motherfucker, look at the state of your car. For some people that do the crazy amounts of PEDs, that's exactly what it's like. And they roll the dice, they spin the roulette wheel, and they hope, fingers crossed, it's not going to fuck me up. And then lo and behold, it does. So the situation is thus that they need to, and as Steve said, I didn't start using steroids till I was 37. I've always been a low dose kind of guy. My last big cycle was just over a gram. That's the most I've ever used. Nearly every other cycle's been circa 600, 700, 800 milligrams. And I've ended up a big, strong record-breaking holding motherfucker. So I hopefully done something right. And as far as I know, Steve, no ongoing medical issues. So, you have to look after your organ health. And in this particular example, natural production of testosterone. Let me just read, this is from a study, a 12-week study, 50 men, demonstrated that those who supplemented with just 500 milligrams, not 1,000 milligrams, as per HCGenerate, of fenugreek daily, containing concentrated amounts of the right ingredients, in other words, the right the stem and a standardized extract level, Steve, significantly improved their testosterone levels. This is how good it was. The study showed an increase in testosterone levels of up to 46%, which is fucking amazing, in 90% of the participants. So basically, Steve, I think that's 45 of the 50 showed up to nearly half as much, again, boosting their testosterone. Now, this would probably be a big group in terms of age and weight and whatever else. And so that kind of increase is great. Let's move on to the next one, Steve.
Next one we talk about is a very important one, vitamin E 30 IU. And this is an important one. I'll tell you why. There is one study out there that has shown a boost in fertility in men, okay, that has been proven to be good for fertility in men. And that study included vitamin E. So we know vitamin E works for fertility for men, works to bring them back from the brink, okay? So if you're struggling when it comes to this, it's a very good antioxidant. We need it in our bodies to keep us healthy. Without vitamin E, you're screwed. It also helps prevent muscle breakdown and boost muscle repair. So it's very, very important that you're using this stuff. And it also helps with vital organs and endurance as well. So really across the board, if you don't got vitamin E in your system, you're screwed. So this is very crucial time during your bridge that all those things come to fruition. I'm going to touch on zinc as well, Mobster, and I'll let you in to talk a little bit about both of those. 7 milligrams is the serving size in HCGenerate. The bottom line with zinc, if you don't got zinc, you're not going to build muscle. You're not going to regulate your hormones. You're not going to produce testosterone. There's a combination of people who have those. I guarantee you, in 100% of situations, if you are deficient in zinc, you will have a deficiency in testosterone. 100% the truth. This is why any good testosterone booster is always going to include zinc. And if it doesn't, it's trash. Throw it away. Very, very important. It's also going to help you build muscle during and after your workout. And it's a very essential mineral. This is a very important addition to the HCGenerate product. Mobster, you want to touch on both of those, and then we'll move on to the next?
No, the zinc I've actually discussed, Steve, is great for example, scars. It's the reason why some plasters have included silver and or zinc in the plaster for hopefully healing. And the healing, of course, is part of what you're doing when you're recovering from training. You don't think of it in those terms, but it is. And I told the story on other shows before about a cheat, if you like, to produce the amount of fluid that we produce when you come would literally take the standardized dose, don't take it for a week or two, and then take 3 or 4 times the standardized dose, and then have a hell of a weekend and surprise both yourself and your young lady or young male friend, or whatever the hell way you swing, by producing a lot more fluid than you normally would. So I want to move on from that particular one, Steve, onto Tonga Ali. Now, so here's an interesting one with Tonga Ali, and HCGenerate contains 100 milligrams. One of the things, and this is the latest research I'm looking at here, Steve, said that it doesn't necessarily produce more free testosterone as release or allow the release from the bound testosterone into free testosterone. It gets a bit confusing for people. The measure that we want to listen to, what we want floating around in our blood, is the free testosterone. The higher the free testosterone levels, the more we're going to have that quote-unquote anabolic effect on our bodies, all the good stuff. And what this is doing, most of the others are producing, and certainly the ingredients we've talked about so far, increase free testosterone in and of themselves by having the body produce more of it. What Tonga Ali is doing is releasing from the bound testosterone testosterone that becomes free, and that's the way that it gives seems to give an increase. And again, what you're looking at here, as we said already, and I'll do this with Tribulus, Steve, and I talked about Tribulus, and I'll go on to that next as well. So the whole thing with Tribulus was the Bulgarian found a plant, Tribulus, and it came from a specific place in the world. And they were looking for something that was going to help their athletes outside of sports cycles for athletics, for the Olympics, to recover in between steroids. And they found a particular plant that came from a particular part of the world. What happened, of course, is we all got to hear about the study, went absolutely crazy for it, and every motherfucker supplement company worth its name tried to get this Tribulus. The problem was they were getting it from the wrong country, or they got the wrong part of the plant, or even if they got the right part of the plant, which in this particular case was the leaf, they had the lower grade shit because the really good stuff had gone. So literally, and I've actually gone to a company for a different reason back in the day, a spice company, and you had the really good stuff, which was the premium quality, the flour, whatever, at the top of the bag. And then you could actually buy the bottom of the bag, which was the dried up stuff that had gone to the bottom of the sack. And the quality products, the expensive stuff was at the top and the cheap stuff was at the bottom. And when it comes to Tribulus, you wanted the top of the bag. You wanted the legitimate product from the right part of the world that was producing the results as seen in the study. And this was super, super important. Now, in the case of HCGenerate, you're looking for the extract, and it's standardized here, Steve, to a minimum, and that's an absolute minimum. Anything less, they're not interested in, of 45% saponins. And this comes in this particular case, Steve, not from the leaf, but from the fruit. And that's 500 milligrams. Like I said earlier on, look at this, guys. And just a very simple explanation, because we're running short on time. Potatoes are a root crop. You don't eat the flower. You do not eat the stem. You don't eat the part of the plant that's above the soil. You're eating the root, the tuber, right? And in this particular case, when it comes to any of these ingredients, and I want you to check that what we're saying is correct, you go away and say, what part of the plant or the ingredient, where does it come from? Is it standardized? Standardization, it requires the following. It is tested to make sure that the active ingredient is present at a certain certified level. Anything less than that level doesn't meet the standard. It doesn't get agreed. It doesn't get brought. It's not included. And again, there's no point taking 500 milligrams of something that's less because you end up having to take more. In this particular case, HCGenerate has a minimum of 45% of the standardization extract at least 500 milligrams per serving. It's super, super important you get that right. Move on to the next one, Steve.
So the next one involves SHBG. Okay. And look, SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin. Why do we have it? It binds and carries sex hormones, especially testosterone, to the tissues and organs where they're needed. So SHBG is a regulator of hormones in the body. Now, this, when you use anabolic steroids, a lot of anabolic steroids bind to SHBG. So it takes away that regulation where it opens up a Pandora's box and breaks down barriers where you can gain more strength, more muscle than what you naturally could. So in this situation, we want SHBG during your bridge to go down. We don't want barriers to be up in place, because of the barriers, you on cycle, you didn't have you didn't have as much barriers. Off cycle, now we're bringing the barriers back up. So what do you think is going to happen to your strength? It's going to crash. What's going to happen to your muscle? It's going to crash, right? So we don't want that. We want to hold your muscle. We want to hold as much strength as possible. You work so hard on cycle. So one of the ingredients in HCGenerate, it's got 3,4-divinol. It's got 500 milligrams of this stuff. And it will actually do what anabolic steroids will do, which is bind to SHBG. Isn't that cool? So it's going to keep that barrier controlled so you can keep more of your gains. And it's going to do it naturally without side effects. So, and obviously it's going to free up more testosterone. You got bound versus unbound testosterone, free versus total testosterone. It's going to cause an increase in the ratio of free testosterone. So as your testosterone levels get supported on HCGenerate during your bridge, it's going to further increase your free testosterone so you get more of the effects that you're looking for. So it really is a great product for that purpose. And then you want to jump in and down, we're going to talk about boron. Go ahead.
Yeah, on this particular one, listeners, you're looking at a standardized minimum 95%. And one of the things that Steve touched upon, I'll expand upon, is it inhibits, so it slows down or stops the conversion of testosterone into estrogen, which we don't want. And again, it's that synergistic effect with everything else. The effective dose here, guys, or the dose that's included in Needtobuildmuscle's product, HCGenerate, is 500 milligrams again, Steve. So yeah, talk about boron. Boron's very well known and has been around for a long time as a testosterone booster. Talk about that.
100 milligrams is what it's in HCGenerate. And you don't see boron talked about much, but look, it's a great ingredient added to here. It's icing on the cake. It reinforces the body's mineral metabolization. It helps everything run smoother in the body. So you're going to have an easier time with your hormones being balanced during your bridging phase. So all these ingredients, as Mobster said, they work in synergy together. There's a method to the madness. The ingredients have generally stayed the same over the past 10, 15 years since HCGenerate was invented. There's been maybe one or two changes, added additions and taken out, and they've done what they can to improve the formula. But this is it. I mean, this is it. This is the gold standard of all testosterone boosters out there. And the ingredients that are in this are extremely impressive, Mobster. And you'll know it. I've had people who've been completely skeptical of testosterone, and within good reason, because most testosterone boosters out there are shit. 99% of them are shit. Look at the ingredients. Look at how they bullshit you, okay? And they don't even use the proper part of the plant. Like Mobster said, you're not going to go to the store and get potato. If your wife or husband or whatever tells you go to the store and get potatoes for dinner, and you come back with the leaf of the potato, what are they going to do to you? They're going to kick your ass as soon as you walk in the door. So what's the but supplement companies, they're going to do everything they can to cheat you, to rip you off. Mobster talked about it. They want to have the Lamborghini and the big house.
Look, Steve has actually done this on. I'll say something that you've done on the forum, Steve, and I'll repeat this because I think it's super important here. When we talk about the proof of the pudding, when we talk about the effect of the product, I can do two things, right? One is I'm going to say what Steve said, which is bloods don't lie. What does that mean? He says, take this product after a cycle, get your levels taken immediately, finish the cycle, and see what your testosterone levels are like just after you finish the cycle, before you do a PCT, before you use HCGenerate. Give it another couple of weeks, get your levels tested again. Now, we're hoping that somebody else has cleared your system. Start using, doing a PCT, and start using as part of that PCT HCGenerate, and tell me the results of your blood test, and you will see positive things start to happen. Now, the other thing, and I touched on this earlier on, Steve, is don't just take our word for it. Go away and look up the studies. There are the NBIM or whatever it is, Steve, the government website that has all those studies that we can check for ourselves, and we can see nearly always the conclusion is the bit we all read. How many people were in a study? What did they do, and what did the results of the study show? So, for example, was it college students? Was it old men, and so on? Now, we want, ideally, but we very rarely get, steroid users, people using sports products, etc., etc. We do the age of students is great. That's not a problem. What we're looking for sometimes is elderly, because their testosterone levels are low. We want as many people in the study as possible. But the number one thing that we want, and this is what I encourage the listeners to check, just pick one of the ingredients and check that what we said in terms of dosaging, the quality, the standardization is correct. If you do that for one, you can do it for another, and so on and so forth. And you'll see that what we're saying is true. Talk about dosing, Steve, because I think it's super important for the listeners to know exactly how to get it right.
So 5 caps per day is the serving size. So you can take all 5 at once. A lot of people like to take maybe an hour or two before your workout, or an hour or two before your bedroom activities. They'll like to take all 5 at once. Another strategy, which is really good, is taking 2 in the morning, 3 at night, or 3 in the morning, 2 at night. So splitting it up that way, that would work as well. So when you start using it, start it as soon as you get into your bridge. When using it for your bridge technique, that's when you start using it. Use it throughout your bridge. That is the best way to use it. But again, you can also use it on cycle. It works great in PCT. It works great whether you cycle or not. You could be listening to this and you're not ready to use anabolic steroids, or you're taking a break from anabolic steroids. It works great for that as well. Just using it as a solo testosterone booster works great. So works really good across the board, Mobster. I highly recommend it. And I know back in the day, we used to be all over this stuff. It worked tremendously well for a lot of us over the years. So finish up, Mobster, and take us to disclaimer.
But guys, we want you to recover from your cycle. We want you to keep as much of your gains, your strength, and the muscle that you added as possible. Ultimately, and especially with a product like HCGenerate with Needtobuildmuscle's help, we want you to recover the best you possibly can with health in between cycles, and get those plump balls and have your testosterone levels and have your body working as absolutely the best it possibly can. That's the reason why we do these shows. That's the reason why we give you this advice. Check this product out, do your own research, double check the information we've given you for dosing. Have a look at those studies and see how the ingredients worked in those studies to make sure we're not bullshitting you and we're not biased. Because we think we've tried this product, we like this product, I've used this product, absolutely, and I know Steve has. Please note, we are not doctors, and the opinions are ours. It's our view and based on our experience and views on the topic. And podcasts are for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.